Hey guys, welcome back. Sorry, I look like crap because I didn't sleep last night. Yesterday, I went on that Quarantine 7 cruise, which was the first long haul test drive of the GTO with the rebuilt engine, the brand new Tremec TKO. A couple issues turned up. One was my tail lights stopped working, which was minor. I could fix that. But the major thing is I have a coolant leak. And when I got there, so it's 100 miles up, 100 miles back. When I got there, I smelled coolant. Couldn't see anything. Checked the radiator level. It was full. So I chalked it up to a small leak. So the way home, no overheating. Got home, got on the lift, smelled coolant again. Put the car up, and there's coolant everywhere underneath the car. Transmission's covered in coolant. I'll show you that in just a second. I checked the top part of the engine. There is no sign of leaking at the top. I suspect a freeze plug dislodged in the rear of the engine behind the flywheel. I hope, because if it's a crack block, it's a whole nother iteration of stuff I don't want to deal with. Oh man, so got some drama on this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the car up. I do have a digital bore scope that I'm gonna try and see if I can just look in behind the flywheel and see what we can see without taking the whole transmission out and everything. Oh man, what a bummer. It might be tough to tell, but see all this? This is all coolant that's sprayed. It looks like from back in here. So this is cooked on coolant. Smells like coolant. Looks like coolant. Must be coolant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this inspection cover off and see if I can get a bore scope back in there. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, I took the inspection cover off and I let it sit overnight. And we have these drips. The drips are coming from the hydraulic throwout bearing. I don't know if you can see it up there, but I also scoped it, and so check out these pictures. So you can tell one is the bottom of the bearing and the other one is the fitting. I think the fitting's loose, so I'm gonna tighten that. And then I also scoped back behind here, and there is no sign of leaking. There's no drips on there, there's no staining. So the freeze plugs are good. So next step is actually what I just noticed on the staining here on the bell housing, because the bell housing is nice and new. So let's go to the top, see if we can see up near the top. Alright guys, I think we found one of the culprits, if not the culprit, but this is nice and wet. So it's either leaking here or here, and of course I assume that this would be tight enough without a hose clamp, so I can put a hose clamp on there. Now the other issue is, see how it's wet in that seam? This hose might be getting cut by that sheet metal, but you can see all the staining. All this staining on the firewall. See that? Just rubs off. Yeah, that was not there before. You know how clean my car is, guys. So I'm going to clean this up at least and give it some thought. Right guys, I pulled all the hosing from the back of the heads to show you what it looks like, because our leak is right in this area. And those of you that missed it, this is a cooling trick I did where I replaced this hose because I wanted to convert to AN fittings. And the whole funny part about this is that I was complaining about how these joints leak and that AN joints don't leak, and voila, this one's leaking right here. So It's not the AN joint, it's the hose to that joint, because I couldn't get this all the way in, blah blah blah. Long story short, as I alluded to in that other video, is that I suspected that this length would be too rigid because the firewall is right here. So this is nipple underneath the hose, straight to the head, totally solid. Whereas in this configuration, the engine vibrates, you have compliance in there. Anyway, I said in that video I'd probably have to re-plumb this situation, so that's what we're going to do. So to give you some more guidance here, this is also unique, mainly for Pontiac heads, but the other thing I made unique is it goes through the firewall. So most systems go in front of the firewall, into the fender, into the heater core, or into the suitcase, whatever. I hid all that hosing behind the firewall. So as this comes through the firewall, it goes, makes a left turn into my vintage air system, that heater core. So we're going to change that today. So I bought some extra parts from Summit Racing, different fittings. I have another hose, so I'm going to re-plumb this so we have more compliance. That's my whole goal here. So this circle right here illustrates the distributor. The distributor actually sits right above this, but you have to go around it because you need access to get that in and out. Anyway, let's see what I come up with. Alright guys, here's my craziness. So basically this is the same assembly, just swapped around. So this 90 degrees was over here. The T I had to take off. I had to buy a different T that has this, the female on this one, because the driver's head goes in here. And then I had to get a 180. So it looks like that basically in the car. And the distributor sits right above this. So I'm going to take a, and then the bulkhead, there's a bulkhead fitting. So check that out. So the bulkhead is right here. And then you can put a nut on here or not, depending, but it gives you some extra length. A 90-degree bend here. And another piece of hose. Like this. So it's be bent down. So the distributor can stick through here, but it'll be on top. How crazy is that? The stuff I get myself into. Anyway, most of you, if you want to do the AN version of this, should be fine the way I had it originally, and you're just running off the back of the motor. The issue I'm having is through the firewall. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly do this AN fitting stuff and then put it in the car. I'll pull the distributor just to give you guys a better view, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, I got one end on, and I'll show you what I did to actually cut. So in the car you mock it up, so it's mocked up like this. I put a piece of tape on. I'm going to do halfway, and then take an off-color Sharpie and mark where the middle of the tape would have been. And if those of you worked with AN hoses before, I suggest this stuff. Aeroflow makes this pre-wrap. So the problem is when you cut through this, you should always tape it before you cut, but it's going to fray on you. So you cut it, and then you take this tape off, it makes it fray, right? So this is like pre-wrap. So any of you guys in athletics have seen this before. This is pre-wrap. This is just like taping your ankle or your wrists. Nice and snug. And you find your mark, and you put the tape right over the center of it. Nice and snug. Bam. Now we know to cut right through the middle. Get aluminum vise teeth, put your fitting in, get some lube. A bunch of companies make this. Take our tape off. It's not frayed. Put our nut on. Much easier. Push it in all the way until it reaches that inside lip, shoulder, right before the threading. Put it on. Get an AN wrench. Aluminum on aluminum won't scratch it. As you get to the end, it should be really tight. It should be nice and warm. That's why the oil, the cuts down on the friction. There we go. There's our fitting. Here's the final contraption. So if this is the distributor right here, it basically looks like this. And the distributor sits on top of it. Yes, this is bonkers and crazy. And I do get carried away with my projects, as you guys know. So the thing that makes this unique for me and probably different from everyone else is that I have to go through the firewall right here. So most of you guys can either run just standard rubber hose off 2 nipples, and then instead of teeing into the firewall, you would just tee this way to go underneath your fender to the heater core or around the front of the motor into the water pump. So this is the easy way. I love AN fittings, so I got carried away, but that's the new contraption. And so check out this picture. Here's where behind the firewall that other connector went, and I put a hose clamp on this time so it's not going to leak, and the hose is fully pressed on that nipple, and I had to use a hammer to do that. Crazy. So we're good there. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the distributor and clean up any mess back there, and we'll get it all together and I'll show you what it looks like. Hey, this is not what I meant by engine mount. You guys are sick. So I do have an oil leak. It's tiny, right where the valley pan meets the block. And so what I'm just going to take some degreaser, remove that oil, and then put more RTV down and just make a bigger bead. No worries. Alright guys, here's the crazy. So as you can tell, I got a little out of hand, but that's what I get for making modifications. So I'll go ahead and put the distributor in, show you guys what it looks like. Okay, distributor's in. I can get my fingers in between here, so that's good clearance. Same with back here, so I can get the cap on. I also have better clearance now to adjust timing, because before it came straight over to here, and I couldn't see what I was doing. I'd have to feel for that nut. So now I can see it, so that's cool. Alright guys, mission accomplished. See, I can still turn the distributor just fine. Looks awesome. Everything's tightened up. And let's go tackle the other leak. Guys, it's time to tackle that throwout bearing leak. And I'm going to try and find a picture of it from a previous video. So I'll put a picture up. And as you can tell, picture or no picture, we have our throwout bearing. If we're looking at it endwise, we're looking at the transmission. And we have basically an acorn nut with our hydraulic line input. And it's leaking right here from our previous picture, right? And I tried to get a wrench on it from this angle. That didn't work, you know, from the inspection plate. So I called Silver Sport just to see, hey, do you guys have any recommendations? How do I get on this nut? And they said, get a crowfoot. I'm like, oh, brilliant. I've always wanted to own one of these. So I went and bought a set. This is metric, so it's 12 millimeter. And what I think our plan of attack would be is if we take this rubber boot off, or let's move it out of the way, we can get a drive extension like that and see if we can stick it in the side over the tube, and we just see if we can tighten it that way. So that's what I'm going to try. So I'll meet you back under the car. Hey guys, I don't know if you can tell, but I got it on there. So the crowfoot's on the acorn nut, and then on this side, 6-inch extension. Then I put my ratchet on there, and I already tightened it, but I did get a quarter turn. Let me see if I got any more here. Oh, we're good. Oh, there we go. Well, I got my extension out, and the crowfoot fell out the bottom, so we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and put the boot back on, and then I'm gonna wait overnight to see if any more oil accumulates here. and that'll be our test. Well, at least until we drive it. So, awesome. Thanks, Silver Sport. The crowfoot worked. Hey guys, we did it. I was shocked that we had 3 leaks. I did not know that going in. I just thought that was coolant. I didn't know it was coolant and oil. That's why you should always taste it to make sure. I'm just kidding. But guys, thanks for hanging out. And I hope you learned something, especially with the AN hoses. I learned that new trick of pre-wrap. I love that. And you guys know I'm addicted to AN hoses, so that's a good thing. And next episode, we're going to tackle the taillight situation because I don't know what's wrong. I'm not an electrical engineer, so we're going to stumble our way through it and hopefully we fix it. Because in a couple episodes, I got an invitation to do an interview at Restomods. So hopefully I can share that footage with you. That'll be a really cool way to walk around the GTO, whole new refresh on the channel. Exciting. So subscribe if you haven't, and you guys know the drill. Build them fast, drive them faster. See ya.